The next routine that we're going to talk about is the sequence. What is the sequence? Sequence is a number generator that generated a sequential order number. For example, generate number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it never goes back. It never generates 9, 10, 8, this sort of thing. It always go from lower to higher. This sequence routine is a functionality like the random number, but random number, it generates different number not in the proper order. The sequence generates number in the proper order from lower to higher. The purpose of the sequence is a random number generator that you can use it for automatic primary key in a table, and use this functionality like the sysdate. We can use it. Let me show you how we can create a sequence and how we're going to use it. Here's the basic format of sequence number generator. Like any other object that we're creating in Oracle database, we're going to say create sequence. For example, ID generator sequence. This is the identifier this is user option identifier. Increment by 10, start with 100 and go to 1000. So if increment 10 by 10, for the first time it's going to generate 100, the next 110, 120, 130, 140, and go on. When it reaches the 1000, that's the cap of it. It cannot go beyond 1000. Let's go ahead and create this example. Here's the example. We put it create sequence, and as the result return us a sequence. Now how we can access the sequence number? Let me show you an example. We have two options in sequence. We can say select index sequence next var from DOL, and it going to give you one number and increase itself by 1. Let's look at this example right now. If I execute this command, it's going to give me 100. Now the value of the sequence jumped to 110. If next time I'm issued select give me a sequence number, for the second time I execute this one, it's going to give me 110. And it's not reversible. The next option is current val. If I know that if I using this command select ID generator sequence that next val, it gave me a sequence and increment itself by 10, but because we use 10 right here. But what if I want to know what is the current number without it going to increment itself? We can use the current val sequence. The current val return me the same number that I have currently, which is 110. And if I do this one, we're going to see the current val is 110. How we can use this sequence? Let's imagine that we have a table such as test, and it has 3 columns. The first column is I, J, and email, and I would like to insert some number in the some sequence number in order in the table test. So I can say insert. May execute this example as you're going to see right here. We're going to say insert into the test value ID generator underscore sequence dot next val from DOL. So it's going to insert 120. If I ran this script again one more time, each time I ran this one, well, let's see why it jumped instead of this one, and let me see why it, okay, let me go ahead and try to do the insert from DOL. And if I execute this command again from DOL, let me see what is it. Well, it didn't go through because I didn't specify the column. It was the implicit insertion, and I did not use all the column of the table test. So I'm going to do it explicitly. I said only I would like to insert the first column of the test. Now let's try it again one more time, and now we're going to insert it. And now again, let's see what is the problem. I did not use the right statement. Insert into the test the column I value ID gen sequence that next val. I had the for statement, and that was the reason So it inserted one row. If I do insert the second one, list that one and insert again, then each time that I execute this one, it's going to insert one row into this, take a number from the sequence and insert. Let's say select asterisk from, or let's say I from test. Select I from test. And you're going to see that it start putting 120, 130, 140 and 150. However, there is no relation between the sequence and the table test. These two objects, they are independent from each other. The sequence is a number generator or a functionality that we use right here. Insert into the test is a DML statement that we're going to do against table test. But we're using the function sequence, the functionality of the sequence. Now question is, when you reach 1000, as I inserted into this table, number by number, and it reach 1000, what's going to happen? It's going to stop and it won't go further unless we're doing the following. We have an option no cycle. No cycle is default. It means if it reach 1000, stop it and sequence cannot generate any more number. However, I may go put it right here cycle, and I'm going to put cycle. When I put the word cycle, it means go start back from the 100 and again go one more round up to the 1000, and it repeat it forever. So you're going to reach, when you reach 1000, then you go back and start from 100 and start doing again. We also have no cache and cache option. What are these two options? Cache option is this time that we request in sequence to bring it up to the memory. What I mean by bring it up to the memory. For example, I would like to 100 to 400 stay in the memory. So I'm going to put a cache 400. Right here, I'm going to cache it the first 400 sequence. Cache 400. It means put in the memory the first 400 of the sequence. And when we try to take it and insert it into the table test, it won't go for the first 400. It won't go to the storage or to the C drive or to the hard drive to access the sequence, what sequence is supposed to display. It bring every functionality and keep the first 400 sequence number. Let's say 400 divided by 10. Let's put it every 10. It's going to generate every time 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It's going to bring the first 400 in the memory. However, there is a bad point about that one. If we shut down the database, if database crash, the first 400 sequence will be lost. So everything in the memory will be lost. That's the disadvantage of having cache or no cache. Let's try this example. Here's the example. Right here, redo that one and sequence. I use the replace. It does not like the replace. Let's take the replace. Here you go. What I did, I dropped the sequence and we'll try to recreate the sequence again. And sequence created, and the first four times it brought the sequence in the memory. Here is the format syntax of the sequence. Right here we have the cycle or no cycle. We had the start with increment by n. We have the max val. We have the mean val. We have the cycle and no cycle. Here's another example. Here's the usage of the sequence. This example use that one against department table and using the sequence number for department value. Here's the example that we're doing the sequence current val from Dole, and here's the concept of caching the sequence. We cannot use create or replace, but if we would like modify a sequence, we use the alter statement. And we're going to say alter sequence, sequence increment, increase the sequence increment, or max number, or change it from cache to no cache, or cycle to no cycle. Here's the guideline for the sequence, and here's the drop statement that we use for dropping a sequence. The next topic that we're going to cover is going to be creating and dropping index. What is index? Index is a type of object which is improve the performance of the query, some of the type of query. So for example, if we having a table and mostly we're running as a DBA, I'm looking and find out that the user mostly they running salary and employee first name, and a table containing 1 million of the record. So we put an index on the salary and employee last name, generating an index or creating, assigning an index on the salary and employee name, so it can access by the path and improve the access time of the retrieving the data from the table. Here's a better description of what I'm talking about. When we create the index, the maintenance of the index and performance and accessibility of the feature of the index depend to Oracle database. Just we're going to ask the Oracle to generate the index in key A and key B, but the rest of other activity depend on the Oracle engine. In fact, when you're creating a primary key or unique key is automatically generating a sequence. However, we may, beside the primary key or unique key, we may prefer to create another sequence, but a sequence in fact is not always a primary key. Here is the example of how to create the sequence, and here is the index of creating the syntax of creating a sequence. So create index, index name, on table employee, and the last name. It could be last name comma salary. We can have composite form of index by using two options. Let's try that example. So we're creating an index on the last name and salary. As you can see, we execute this statement, create an index on last name and salary, and it generates an index. I'm not going to see anything more, and I should not do anything. But when I do a query and my query is on the last name and salary, the access time is faster. That's the only difference between the generating a sequence or using a primary key. But primary key has one purpose, this one has another purpose. This one improve the access time when we do a select statement. Here is the syntax format of the index. Create unique or bitmap index, index name on the column or columns. Well, when we're creating an index, it's right that it's going to improve the performance, but it will generate some overhead for that specific table. Oracle recommend the following. If you want to create an index, you have to consider that one. It is better to create a sequence if this 4 feature is available. And it is negative effect if the scenario a table is small and you're creating a sequence. These 4 options that you're going to see right here. Removing index, like removing any other object in the Oracle, is pretty simple. All you have to say drop the object type, index, sequence, table, whatever, and the object name. So if we do the drop statement, also you're going to drop the sequence that we created. The next component that we're going to cover, creating and dropping a synonym. Synonym is really giving an alternative name to an object. What we mean by that? Well, the Dole table is a synonym for a table which exists on the Oracle admin user. For example, if I'm going to say describe Dole table, Dole, but if I'm going to look in my table list, select asterisk from my catalog, from my cat, I'm not going to see any object such as Dole at all. I'm not going to see that object in my list. So the synonym is given alternative name to object. Now we have two types of synonym. We have private synonym, which is created by a local user and is accessible by a local user or local user, and a public synonym, which is like a Dole, is accessible to all users. So we have two types of synonym. In the database, I did not give you the public privilege to create a public synonym, but you have a right to create a private synonym, because if you're creating a public synonym, somebody created, you cannot drop it, and probably cannot conflicting with the other user that they create a synonym. Here's the format to create a synonym. Create synonym, whatever the synonym, for department table. Give me another name for department table. And this is a private synonym. When you're dropping the synonym, it's pretty simple. Drop synonym object name, as we mentioned before. Here is the example for public synonym, but if I attempting to create this public synonym, well, they're going to tell me that you don't have permission to create a public synonym, but we can creating a private synonym. Here's my synonym. I change it to the private, and now for test we name that synonym ism, and as a result it create a private synonym.